Thank you so much for hanging with us. Hopefully now your video is a little bit better quality. So we're just gonna go a little bit back and start over again. I will introduce you to our animal guest for today. This is Stella, and she is a great horned owl, and she is a pretty special one that we have here in the zoo. I'm gonna tell you first a little bit about her species, and then we'll get into why she's so special. So great horned owls are a pretty common species here in the United States. You can find them pretty much everywhere you are. You can also find them up into Canada and down into Mexico as well. They're able to be found so many places because they really adapt well to all sorts of different climates, and they can also find food pretty much wherever they are. Really nothing is off limits for a great horned owl. They're a very aggressive species, and they're top predators almost everywhere they are. So if you're out looking for a great horned owl, a great place for you to look would be somewhere with lots of trees that's a really wooded area. Because if you look closely at Stella's feathers, you'll see all those lines and stripes on her. They're meant to help her camouflage perfectly with the trees that she's sitting in. She's supposed to look just like the tree bark. So if she's sitting real still and quiet up there, you would probably walk right past her. You wouldn't even see her there. And that really helps her when she's hunting. So when she's up in those trees, all that prey that she's looking for isn't going to spot her either. When she's looking for food, she's going to be using her really strong sense of hearing, as well as her really powerful eyes to help her find her food. That eyesight is triggered by movement, so something as small as a mouse on the ground twitching its whiskers is going to be something that Stella can pick up right away. And she's gonna say, that's a pretty tasty snack. I'm gonna go down there for that. So when she's ready to go for her food, she's gonna use her big wings to help her swoop down to the ground. Her wingspan is usually about 4.5 feet for an average great horned owl. And they are pretty powerful, and they're covered in these really soft feathers. And those soft feathers allow her to be completely silent when she's flying. Because they're not very fast species, they rely on that stealth to help them get down onto the ground undetected. So when she's looking for prey, she's going to look for all sorts of things, something from a mouse to a rat, even all the way up to larger things like skunks is one of their favorite things to eat, groundhogs, rabbits. These birds have even been known to go after other birds of prey like hawks and falcons. They'll attack other owls. They'll also eat something as small as maybe a frog or a lizard or a bug if they just want a little snack. So like I said, nothing's really off limits for these guys. Once they reach their prey down on the ground, they'll use those really big, powerful feet that they have. If you look down at her feet, you'll see how large they are compared to her body. And they have some really long, sharp talons on them. So great horned owls have about 300 to 500 pounds of gripping strength per foot. That's 10 times more than a person. And it takes about 28 pounds of pressure of force to break those feet apart. So once she has something in her talons, chances are it's not getting away from her. And she'll usually take that prey back up into a tree with her, where she'll use that beak that you see on her face to help her rip it apart. So you'll see down in front, it comes into a point, and that is used like a knife to help her rip things right apart. And along each of the sides, you'll see it's also very sharp, and those act kind of like scissors as she opens and closes her beak to help her cut her food apart. So she's very well equipped for what she's got to do out in the wild and all that food she's got to find. So Stella herself came to us in 2011 as a young owl. Unfortunately, she was taken out of the wild by somebody who thought that they wanted an owl in their house as a pet. This is a really bad idea because, first of all, it's illegal. You're not supposed to take these birds out of the wild. Even if you were, they're not really good pets. They're not cuddly at all. They're very aggressive. They're very dirty. They eat live things. So there's going to be lots of gross stuff laying around your house. So they wouldn't be very good house pets anyway. Luckily, that person realized their mistake and turned her over to Fish and Wildlife, who did make a couple attempts to release her back into the wild. But unfortunately, because Stella was just a small owl when she was taken out of her nest, she never really learned how to be a wild owl. So she is considered an imprint, which means she believes she is more of a person than an owl. So once they realized she wouldn't be able to go back on her own out into the wild, they searched for a home for her under human care, and that's how she came to us here at Elmwood Park Zoo. So Stella has been with us ever since. She comes out to help us teach classes, school groups, camps. She goes to nursing homes, so she does it all, and she is a real star. But in 2013, Stella actually got a really cool second job that not a whole lot of owls of her species would be able to handle. Stella actually became the live mascot for Temple University, which is a really great university here in Philadelphia. So Stella goes to all of the home football games, and she sits down on the field to meet her fans and cheer on the team. She will also go to numerous men's basketball games and women's basketball games, as well as various other events throughout the year. And yeah, that is a really tricky thing to train her to do and make sure she's comfortable at these events. And Temple works really great with us to try to make sure she is set up for success and at her best. So to talk a little bit about her training here at the zoo, Laura, who is behind the camera, is going to chime in and talk for a few minutes to you guys about that.
All right, guys, so I'm just gonna continue to get some cool up-close shots of Miss Stella here. Thank you guys for hanging with us today. So as Rebecca mentioned, Stella does a lot of different events for Temple University, and as you can imagine, if you've ever been to a sporting event, that means there's a lot of loud noise, there's a lot of different distractions, a lot of people. And we try really hard here at Elmwood Park Zoo to make sure that our animals are set up for success and are as comfortable as possible in the jobs that they have, especially our mascot and ambassador animals. Because Stella is going to be out there meeting a lot of new people, we had to take some time to train her to make sure she was comfortable, and this was a part of her daily routine. So Rebecca is Stella's primary trainer, so she works with Stella most frequently. And then myself, I am her secondary trainer. So the two of us are the ones who generally take Stella to different Temple events. And this is because we have spent a lot of time building up a relationship. And the key to Stella's heart, you may have seen it just there, is actually food. So many birds of prey are food motivated and not really motivated by a whole lot more. So Rebecca was mentioning that we don't really want to keep owls as pets. They are not recommended. They don't make great animals in the house, and it's not really good for them. They're not suited for that kind of life. So Stella is not our pet, but we do have to take care of her, and in order to ensure that happens in the best way possible, we do use food to train her. So Rebecca was just giving her a few little snacks. Stella's doing a really nice job sitting here on this perch with you know, a new setting. She's never been on Zoo School Live before, so every time we bring Stella out is a new training session. So she does earn food as reward for different behaviors. And when we're talking about an owl, the most common behavior we're going to look for is her to be calm and relaxed when she's out in a new setting. So Stella doesn't really have to work that hard to get snacks. Most of the time we're just looking for her to be sitting nicely, make sure her feathers are fluffed up, her feet aren't gripping too tight. Those are all signs that she is comfortable. And if she's comfortable, especially in a new setting, she gets some snacks. It's a pretty nice gig, I think. But we call this positive reinforcement. So we are rewarding or reinforcing the behavior that we want. But we didn't just start off taking Stella out and plopping her on her perch. We had to spend a lot of time actually kind of going back and teaching her the basics, because we wanted to make sure Stella had a positive relationship with us. So Rebecca and myself worked really hard to train Stella to step up on the glove voluntarily. So in her enclosure, she has a special perch that she goes and sits on, and then we show her her little snack, and she'll lift up her foot and step on the glove. And then she also goes on a scale every day so we can weigh her, which might sound a little terrifying to most people, myself included, but it's really important when you're working with birds of prey to know how much they weigh and to make sure they're healthy and motivated. Because again, if Stella is not in the mood for food, she is not in the mood for doing much of anything with us. As much as we love Stella and like to think she loves us back, it's not really common for an owl, even an imprinted owl, to build that kind of relationship with us. So Stella's routine is she steps up on the glove, she goes on a scale, we get a weight, make sure she's healthy. Sometimes she goes in a special crate for travel, And then sometimes she comes out and sits on the perch. And you can see she's got her own specialty perch with her own faceplate there, because she is one of our live mascots for Temple. And so she either sits on a perch or on the glove. And Stella doesn't just do Temple events. She does programming here at the zoo, on zoo grounds, and then also does other kinds of outreach, at least when we were open, and visiting schools and different places. So those are all different places, all different opportunities for her to meet new people and see new things. So we always kind of bring her food along and offer it to her if we need to, just to remind her that it's a positive experience. And we've been really lucky. Like Rebecca said, it is not very often that you see an owl in such an intense setting as a football game or a basketball game, and many birds would not adjust to it well. But Stella has actually fallen asleep on the sidelines before. She'll close her eyes and kind of tuck her foot and show us a lot of signs that she's relaxed and comfortable. So we're pretty lucky to have a bird like that did require a little bit of training, but overall was pretty calm in some pretty interesting situations. So Stella is just one of our many birds here at the zoo that we do train to make sure they are good at their job. You guys met Reggie, you met Killian. Those are all birds, and Hoover, all birds that we've used positive reinforcement, so rewarding, to encourage that animal to participate in their daily care. And that helps us not only bring them out as ambassadors, but also to do health checks. So, the fact that Stella will weigh herself every day is really helpful. She'll allow us to change her equipment. She does wear very special little bracelets on her ankles, just in case, because unfortunately, due to Stella's early history, she is not able to fly. So if she were to put her wings out, you'd notice that they're pretty small, pretty short looking. She does not have very many primary wing feathers, so we believe that she unfortunately may not have received the proper diet when she was a baby, so she really didn't develop the way she should have, and that's another reason why she's here with us. But because of that, if she can't fly, then she could accidentally hurt herself if she jumped off the perch, if she got nervous. And as much as we try to make sure Stella is nice and comfortable in all new settings, we can't predict everything. And sometimes she sees things that we don't even know exist. Owls, just like other raptors, as Rebecca was saying, have amazing senses. So we try to prevent her from being scared, but sometimes she does. And so she just wears a leash and special little bracelets on her feet called anklets and jesses. Those are just her little safety net. And that's basically what Rebecca and my job is when we're out with her. We're kind of her chauffeur. We just make sure she's nice and safe. We deliver her snacks. So Stella's got quite a nice setup here at Elmwood Park Zoo.
All right, so I think we're ready to go to some questions now. If you guys have any burning questions about Stella. All right, it looks like Sophia wants to know, how high can she fly? Good question. So great horned owls, they can fly pretty high, but they're not really often going to fly to their maximum height. Usually they're going to stay right along the tips of the trees because they want to stay hidden, and that's where they're safest and where they're meant to camouflage in. So they're not going to go much higher than those treetops. Good question. Molly wants to know, why is she making that sound? Very good question. She has been talking away this whole entire time. So that's actually a happy sound coming from Stella. It is a sound that just means she's comfortable. Whether she has a full stomach or an empty stomach, she still makes that sound. She's just talking away to us, letting us know that she's having fun. Nora wants to know, does she have friends at the zoo? Good question. So all of our great horned owls are housed separately here. Stella did for a few years share an enclosure with a male great horned owl who is also a rescue that lives here. But unfortunately, she decided she did not want a roommate anymore, and she began picking on him a lot. So we moved him out into a new home for him. So no, Stella lives all by herself here at the zoo, and believe me, she is perfectly happy to be by herself. Cassidy wants to know, do you ever cut her nails? Good question. We don't really have to cut her nails. So out in the wild, as they would be jumping around and flying and landing on all sorts of branches and perching, those nails, and especially as they're using them to hunt, are actually going to keep themselves pretty trim. So here at the zoo, we try really hard to get her some perching in her enclosure with really rough bark so that those nails will stay filed on their own as she is jumping around. Once a year, they do have exams, so if the need ever arises for us to trim her nails, we can certainly do that. We have that ability, but luckily, we have not had to. Good question. Daniel wants to know, does she fly? Good question. So Stella actually cannot really fly very well. Due to her upbringing, we suspect she might have not gotten the proper nutrition that she needed as a baby owl to grow big and strong. So if Stella was to spread her wings out, you would see they're kind of weak looking. She doesn't have a lot of muscle in there, and they're kind of short. And she's actually lost a lot of the feathers that she needs to fly on her wings. So Stella can't take off and go fly like another owl in the wild would be able to. She can only kind of flutter short distances before she begins to flutter down to the ground. Lakia wants to know, what do they eat? Very good question. So great horned owls eat a wide variety of things. They'll go after small mammals like rats and mice. They could go after rabbits and groundhogs. Great horned owls have been known to attack even larger raptors like hawks and falcons and smaller owls. And they've even been known to eat small snacks like frogs or snakes or even some bugs. Probably their favorite thing to eat out in the wild is going to be skunks. Because they are abundant, since there's not many things that eat skunks, but owls are actually really good at eating skunks. They don't have a very strong sense of smell. They can only smell just enough to be able to taste the food that they're eating. But otherwise, they don't really have a good sense of smell. So when that skunk uses its only form of defense, which is that really stinky spray, it's not going to bother an owl at all. Good question. Joseph wants to know, how can you know if she is mad or upset? Oh, believe me, Stella's gonna tell me if she's mad at me. So she can clack her beak together. She can make a hissing sound. She will try to bite my glove if she's upset. She will give a whole bunch of signs if she begins to be uncomfortable or want to leave the situation. If she's sitting on my glove, you can also start to feel her feet really start to tighten around my glove. And those are all signs that I know when she's given those to me, it's time to go home for Stella. She's about done. Gianna wants to know, why is she awake during the day? Good question. So great horned owls are most often awake at nighttime. They are considered nocturnal, although you can see them often at dawn and dusk starting to hunt. Stella is awake right now simply because her clock is a little bit more off since she lives under human care. She has kind of adjusted to our activity. She kind of watches what we do, and she's used to being woken up to come out to programs. However, she does still take long naps during the day, and we have put a video camera on her before, and we've seen that she is extra active at night. So she still kind of is on a wild owl schedule to an extent. But even wild owls, once in a while, you will still see them out in broad daylight, maybe looking for some food. It's not uncommon. Very good question. Robert wants to know, do they hunt mostly with talons or their beak? Good question. They are mostly going to use those feet. They're their most powerful weapon. They're so large and so strong that that alone is a pretty powerful weapon. And then you put those long, sharp talons that I'd say are probably about an inch long. You put those on top of each toe. That's definitely something you want to stay away from. But her beak is also pretty sharp and strong too. She's well equipped to use both anytime she needs to. Gabby wants to know, how old can owls get? Good question. So in the wild, a great horned owl can average usually 20 to 30 years. I believe the oldest on record in the wild was about 28 years old. This is a pretty long lifespan for a wild animal because they are top of the food chain. It's one of the perks they get. But when they're under human care, they can live even longer than that. The oldest recorded great horned owl under human care lived to be about 50 years old. Very good question. Tamara wants to know, does she fill out March Madness forms? Good question. She does not fill out March Madness forms. I'm sure though Stella would like to be in her own category, her own bracket of a March Madness form. All right, last three questions. Samuel wants to know, how much does she weigh? Good question. Stella is actually a lot lighter than she looks. She is only just over 2.5 pounds right now, which is an average healthy weight for her. A lot of what you see on her is actually her really fluffy, soft feathers. Their bodies are actually pretty small and they've got really light skeletons. So that's what they need, all that stuff to help them be really quiet when they're out in the wild and to help them fly when they're out in the wild. All right, Sophia wants to know, is she endangered? Very good question. She is not considered an endangered species. They are a species of least concern. Because they are so well populated everywhere and can find so much food to eat, their species is doing really well out in the wild. Dolores wants to know, how is her husband? Oh, Dolores, what a good question to end on. So for those of you who don't know, Stella, through Temple University, had a really great wedding thrown for her. She married our male great horned owl, Sherlock. I believe it was a year and a half ago. So that is a video on YouTube you can definitely check out. And Sherlock is doing just fine. They do live separately. They both like it better that way. It makes for a much better marital harmony between the two of them. But he is doing just great. Thank you for asking. All right, guys, so thank you so much for joining us here on Zoo School today and meeting Stella. I hope you have enjoyed learning all about her, and we hope to see you tomorrow for the next episode of Zoo School. Thanks, guys.